Imagine this, a once-revered brotherhood of elite warriors, backed by popes and kings, feared by enemies, and praised by the faithful. They were rich beyond imagination, loyal beyond doubt, and sacred beyond question. But within a single morning, Friday, October 13th, 1307, they were hunted like criminals, tortured like heretics, and erased from history, like a shadow that never existed. How does a group so powerful fall so far, and so fast? This is the rise and brutal fall of the Knights Templar, a story drenched in glory, betrayal, secrets, and blood. The year was 1119. Just 2 decades after the First Crusade had taken Jerusalem, chaos still ruled the roads of the Holy Land. Pilgrims who journeyed to worship at the sacred places often found themselves ambushed, robbed, or worse, slaughtered. There was no safety, no law, just dust and danger. Enter 9 knights, nobles of France, veterans of war, and men of faith. They came to protect the pilgrims, to be both monks and warriors. Their leader, a quiet but determined knight named Hugues de Payan. They swore vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. They wore simple white robes with a red cross. They had no wealth, no castle, and for the first few years no more than 9 members. Yet what they did have was powerful, a mission from God, and the blessing of the Church. In 1129, they were officially endorsed by the Pope. The poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, later known simply as the Knights Templar, were born, and they didn't stay poor for long. In less than a century, the Templars exploded in wealth and influence. Donations poured in from across Europe, lands, estates, gold, livestock. Kings offered them privileges, nobles sent their sons to join the order. Even the Pope gave them full autonomy. They could travel across borders, were exempt from local taxes, and answered only to the Pope himself. Their headquarters? A fortress built on the ruins of Solomon's Temple in Jerusalem. That's where they got their name, Templars. But they weren't just warriors. They were bankers, administrators, and landowners. They built fortresses across Europe and the Holy Land. They developed one of the earliest forms of international banking. Pilgrims could deposit money in London and withdraw it in Jerusalem. Imagine that in the 12th century. A warrior monk walking into your town, dressed in white with a red cross offering you protection, financial security, and divine purpose. The Templars became untouchable. They fought in major battles, defended kingdoms, funded kings, and all, the while their treasure grew and their secrets deepened. Now here's where things get strange. People began to whisper. What was inside the Templar vaults? What relics did they find in Jerusalem? Was it true they had the Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, even the Shroud of Christ? No one knew. The Templars were secretive. Their initiation rites were closed off. Their symbols were mysterious, their rituals strange. Over time, legends were born. Some said they worshipped a mysterious head called Baphomet. Others claimed they practiced magic, that they had drifted from Christ into something darker. The truth? Lost to history. But the rumors, they were enough to spark suspicion, especially in the mind of a man desperate for power, and even more, desperate for gold. King Philip V of France was a man drowning in debt. He had fought expensive wars. His economy was weak, and he owed a massive fortune to the one institution more powerful than his crown, the Knights Templar. They had loaned him money, advised him politically, and now they were growing too powerful for his comfort. Philip wanted 2 things: control over France and access to the Templars' gold. But how do you destroy an order protected by the Pope himself? You accuse them of heresy. Behind closed doors, Philip gathered secret testimonies, bribed spies, and planted evidence. He waited patiently. Then he struck with brutal precision. Friday the 13th, a date that still sends chills down our spine, and it started here. At dawn, across all of France, hundreds of Templars were arrested. They were taken from their monasteries, dragged from their beds, and thrown into dungeons. The charges? Heresy, sodomy, idolatry, witchcraft, blasphemy. The accusations were wild: spitting on the cross during initiation, worshipping a bearded head, kissing each other on the base of the spine. To the average man, these sounded horrifying, but to A king looking for excuses, they were perfect. The Templars were tortured, burned, stretched, crushed. Under agony, many confessed to crimes they never committed. Some were broken, others died under torture. Their Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, held firm, at first, but eventually even he gave in under the unbearable pain. He confessed, then, later recanted. It was too late. The public was stunned. How could these holy warriors be heretics? Was it true, or was it a setup? The Pope, Clement V, tried to intervene, but even he was a puppet in Philip's hands. The trial dragged on for years, and the order that had once stood at the center of Christendom was unraveling. The Templars didn't just exist in France. They had outposts in England, Spain, Germany, Italy, and beyond. So what happened next? One by one, rulers in other countries followed Philip's lead. Under pressure, they began arresting Templars in their own lands, but not all were convinced of the charges. In Portugal, the king refused to hand them over. Instead, he renamed the order and protected its members under a new name, the Order of Christ. In Scotland, rumors say some Templars escaped and fought at the Battle of Bannockburn with Robert the Bruce. Others believe they sailed away entirely, disappearing across the sea. These legends of survival, escape, and secret continuation are part of what fuels modern fascination with the Templars. Were they wiped out entirely, or did they live on in secret? The end, however, was drawing near for those who remained imprisoned in France. 2. The chilling morning of March 18, 1314, dawned cold and grey over Paris. Jacques de Molay, the 23rd and final Grand Master of the Knights Templar, stood at the stake on an island in the Seine River. His order, once the most powerful and respected in Christians, had been shattered. He was sentenced to burn alive, convicted by a trial many believed was nothing more than a cruel farce. But in his final moments, de Molay did something unforgettable. Raising his eyes to the sky, he called out, cursing both King Philip IV and Pope Clement V. He declared their injustice would not go unpunished, and that within a year God would call them to account. Remarkably, both men died within that year, Clement of illness, Philip suddenly and mysteriously. Whether coincidence or divine retribution, the legend spread far and wide. With de Molay's death, the Templars officially ceased to exist. Their properties were seized, their treasures lost or stolen, and their name dragged through centuries of rumor, myth, and conspiracy. But what about their treasure? What became of the vast wealth they amassed across Europe and the Holy Land? Many believe it was hidden away, secreted in underground vaults, forgotten castles, or buried deep in the French countryside. Others speculate the treasure was smuggled, out before the arrests, spirited away by loyal Templars determined to protect it. And what about the alleged relics, the Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant? No concrete evidence ever surfaced. Some historians dismiss the tales as pure fantasy. Others think the Templars were guarding something so powerful it had to be erased from history. The truth is lost beneath centuries of fire, war, and political intrigue. Yet the impact of the Knights Templar remains. They changed medieval warfare by combining monastic discipline with combat prowess. They pioneered early banking systems, inspiring modern finance. They influenced architecture, leaving behind some of Europe's most iconic castles and cathedrals, and they live on in our collective imagination. From Dan Brown novels to blockbuster films, from secret societies to conspiracy theories, the Templars captivate us because they embody mystery itself. Noble warriors caught in a web of faith, greed, and betrayal. But beyond the myths, their story reminds us of something deeper. How power, fear, and envy can destroy even the mightiest. How legends are born in the ashes of truth. And how sometimes the greatest battles are fought not on the field, but in the shadows. As we close this chapter of history, consider the Templars not as villains or victims, but as men who dared to serve a higher purpose and paid the ultimate price for it. Their story is a cautionary tale for every era. Because the brutal fate of the Knights Templar is not just about medieval knights or secret treasures, it's about the fragile balance of power, faith, and justice. A balance that can tip in an instant. Thank you for joining me on this journey into one of history's most fascinating and tragic stories. If you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more immersive medieval history stories. Until next time, keep your curiosity alive and remember, the past is never truly gone. It's waiting for us to uncover its secrets.